Hello, I'm Pastor Chris Buresh from Good Shepherd Lutheran Church here in Palos Heights. As a pastor, I get to hear about all types of amazing things that are going on in the Palos community. As I talk to agencies and individuals and organizations that are doing some fantastic work, they always share how they'd love more people to know about what it is that they do and how it is that they can take a part in it or continue to have it available and accessible to those that they care about. And that's the spirit behind our monthly program, The Community Bridge. Today, I'm blessed to be joined with Dina Jobia Stukel, who's here to share a little bit about the Creative Arts Center studio at Advocate Children's Hospital. Dina, great to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, my name is Dina Jobia Stukel, and I gifted the Creative Arts Therapy Studio to Advocate Children's Hospital in Oak Lawn in my mom's name, Grace Ann Jobia.
Wow. So tell us what inspired this.
Okay, so it's a big inspiration. I'm the youngest of 6, and growing up, my mom was like the creative mom. She was so great. I thought she was the coolest. She was fun and inspirational, and she taught us about creativity and art, and she had a craft room in her house. When we were growing up, we moved out to New Lenox when my brothers and sisters were getting older, and we had a craft room there. And in this room, you were just free to do crafts and art and all sorts of things, whether it was clothes or sewing or coloring, and me and my friends got to go in there, and my brothers and sisters and the grandkids, and if I had a slumber party or friends over, there was always like an art project going on. So she was very all about art and creativity. And one other thing that she was so passionate about was children and giving children a chance to express themselves and be comfortable and take mental health days almost. She always taught us how to change our scenery when things were getting a little too much. Just change your scenery, look at things from a different perspective, and that could have been anything from go out to Starbucks and get a coffee, or go take a walk with the dog, or didn't have to be anything major. We all go on vacations from time to time, and that's a nice change of scenery, and that's a nice regrouping and decompressing, but daily things you can do. And she was a big, big fan of that. In grade school, when I was in grade school, during 7th and 8th grade, she would take me out of school one day a month for 7th and 8th grade, and we would just go exploring. They told the school I was, maybe at a dentist appointment or something. Or a doctor's appointment. But we would go to Pilcher Park, we would go discover, we would go on nature walks, and talk about the decompression that happened. And I didn't even know it at the time, but that's what she was doing. I was just having fun with my mom. I was doing, fun days with my mom, and she was teaching me how to take mental health days. She was teaching me, get out of the classroom a little bit. You're going to learn a lot more. On some days, you learn a lot more outside the classroom than you do in the classroom. Change your scenery up a bit. And so I have that in my being, and I tried to promote that to my own kids, and my brothers and sisters did with their children. And my whole career, as it turns out, was advertising and design. I think that she kickstarted that. It made complete sense for me to be in that field because that's how I was raised, creativity and things like that. So when she passed away, it was at a time when my kids were little and they didn't really get to know her. My older nieces and nephews got to know her and play with her and do all the fun things and go in the craft room and have all this fun. And my kids didn't. And I was like, dang. And I really wanted to explain to them and show them who their grandma was, in addition to living out her legacy with who she was. And so I thought, you know what? The best way to do this, she loved children, she loved creativity, she had a special place in her heart for kids that otherwise needed an extra hand, little extra help. She was like the Pied Piper. Kids just flocked to her. I've never met anyone like that in my entire life still, that she just had that gift. And so I thought, I really, in her honor, I really would love to do something with crafts and creativity with kids, tying in kids that needed a little extra help. And I thought, this is perfect. This is exactly who she was, a craft room in her name at a children's hospital. And that explains her perfectly.
Well, there's so many elements of that.
There's so many elements
that
of that,
are
yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I love the way that you highlighted the need to just step away from things and change scenery for the sake of resetting and giving a new perspective.
And you never
on it.
think about that stuff, but you do it and it works. It really does.
What a valuable gift that your mom gave you, and you're working to pass along to others, not only your family, but those children that are at Advocate Children's Hospital as well.
Yeah.
So can you speak a little bit about the studio and where's it located? When was it open?
Okay. So the studio it's called the Creative Arts Therapy Studio. It's in memory of Grace Ann Jobia, who's my mom. And I knew that I wanted to do something with art therapy there, and they have an excellent art therapy program, art and music therapy. It's been there for about 10 years now. But I thought I could donate to the therapy program, but I really, really want to get a room in there. If I really want to do this in my mom's honor and what she really believed in, I want a room. I want a room where these kids can leave their hospital bed, change their scenery for a little bit, even if it's for 10 minutes, if that's all they can handle that day. Change their scenery and be creative in a safe, medical-free zone. So it's a studio. It's at Advocate Children's Hospital. It's on the 4th floor. And it is a sacred space. It's a very safe, non-medical zone, which means these kids all day long, they're in treatment or they're in tests or they're in their hospital room, right? And this room is a place where even their art therapist goes with them. Doctors can go, nurses can go, but there's no medical treatment going on in this room. They can't get their blood pressure checked. They can't do their temperature. It's just all that leaves at the door. That's what we wanted. Because all day long, that's what they're getting, right, in their hospital rooms. So we wanted a space, a safe space where it's just them, where they're no longer patients, they're no longer kids, they're artists, right? And finding space in a hospital is hard. And I was really adamant I wanted a window. I wanted a window to change their scenery and look out at a different view out of a different window than what they're used to. And so it took a while. It took about a year and a half, almost 2 years of planning, of meeting with the hospital, of walking around looking for space. They showed me a couple different spaces, and in my heart I was like, no, I'll wait. I'll wait until we get the perfect space. And we have the perfect space now. And I have to tell you, the people at Advocate were all in from the very beginning. They were all in for this project. They have, like I said, they have art therapy now, and the art therapists go bedside and do artwork for the kids bedside. Now they can get out of their room, change their scenery, look at things from a different perspective, decompress, stop worrying about the things they worry about in their room, and have a whole new area to do it in. Mm-hmm. So it's got 2 tables. It's got every imaginable art and craft you can think of: paints, brushes, canvases, easels, markers, crayons, craft items. It's got its own bathroom, and it's got a window, which I'm happy about.
There you go. You got your wish.
Yep.
Huh?
Yep.
So why Advocate Children's Hospital? Why was that the right fit as you looked at trying to do something for your mom in the spirit of how she raised you?
It was a perfect fit because my brothers and sisters she raised her family, my brothers and sisters, right down the street on Costner Avenue. Right down the street from, it was called Christ Hospital at the time, which is right at Costner and 95th. And we were 101st in Costner. And so it was right down the street. So it made perfect sense to be right there.
Wow, location,
Yep,
right?
yep.
So Can you explain to us, when you think of a hospital, you think of machines and IVs and hospital beds and people treating a disease. How does art therapy fit in to caring for a patient?
Okay. Art therapy is a mental health profession that helps patients and their families cope with their illness, with hospitalization, with their treatments by doing creative work, by art making and the creative process. Our art therapists and music therapists are licensed therapists. They're trained licensed therapists first. And then at the very minimum, they have a master's degree in specialized art therapy. So that's their concentration. So art therapy's goal is to help promote self-expression, help children relax, help them express themselves if they can't do it verbally, express themselves through art, through imaginative play. These art therapists are with patients at some of their most challenging times in their life. And they work with them to earn a trust, to get out of their own heads at times, to their parents as well. And just, it helps them cope. It helps them cope. That's the form of therapy that lets children play and lets children have a sense of control when so much control has been taken from them.
I love the way that you classified it under a mental health, given the standpoint that when you go into a hospital or you go to a doctor's office or you get sick, there's always an emphasis on, well, we treat the disease. We gotta, you know, come in and here's your treatment for this condition or for this illness. But oftentimes the mental anguish of the disease, the illness, the treatment can be forgotten. So it's great to hear of how art therapy steps in to try to address that in a manner that allows somebody to not only go through treatment, but also come out at the other end in a manner where they're healthy in a holistic manner.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. It's exactly right. When you're in the hospital, anyone, children, any adult is in a hospital, it's all about the medicine, the blood pressure, how we're going to treat this. And if you're at a children's hospital for whatever your diagnosis is or your trauma or your particular situation, there's a lot of tests going on. There's a lot of medicine. It's pretty heavy medicine too. They're away from their friends at school. They're not on the playground with their buddies. They're not at home with their brothers and sisters or their parents or their pets. They're not in their own bed. So for a child, it can be unfair, scary, unknown. And, art therapy, like I said, has been in the hospital for about 10 years now, and they go bedside. So they will work for patients that are on isolation protocol for whatever is going on. They can't leave their room. Art therapy goes to their bedside. And so even those kids who can't go into the studio are still artists. They still get their therapy that way. But to have this studio, it was just such a great thing to hear these kids so excited about it and the staff so excited about it. And the fact that they can get out of their hospital room, forget about the medicine, forget about the IVs and the tubes and the treatments and the chemos and all of that, and just go be themselves and go play. Just go play, go make art. And while they're in there, because they're with a therapist, the therapist knows how to get them to relax and get them to talk about their feelings and their fears and their family life and how their new lifestyle has changed and get some control over it again.
That's beautiful.
I know.
And what I hear kind of behind the story as well is also, you're talking about the impact that this makes not just on the patient themselves, the child, but also those that the child interacts with, both family members from a standpoint of the weight that parents and siblings feel in these situations, as well as the staff. I think it's marvelous. You've mentioned several times how the staff and Advocate was all behind it, and I can only imagine how comforting it is for them as they develop relationships with these patients to see them engage in something that brightens up their eyes
Right,
or brings
yeah.
them a little bit of joy.
Because it is all medicine,
Yeah.
right? And that's what they specialize in. But they're still kids, and they still want to take a break from all that.
Yeah. So what are some of the success stories involved with the studio? You said it opened in November of not this last year of 2025, but 2024.
November of 2024.
Okay. And so it's been going on for about a year. What's been some of the impact stories?
Okay, well, I'm going to read some of the impact stories because they're so fantastic. I want to make sure I get it right. And I get these, I check in all the time with, how's it going? What are the kids making? When we first opened, the kids, 6 of the children gifted six of my brothers and sisters with a piece of art that I still have in my house. So they're all excited about it. And so every once in a while, I'm like, okay, what's the latest? What are we learning? What's going on in the room? So the art therapist and the music therapist was kind enough to give me these. So I'm going to read them. They're a little bit in clinical form, obviously for confidentiality reasons, but they brought so much joy. Every time I read any of the stories that they send me or share with me on the phone, it just brings me so much joy because this is exactly what my mom would have wanted. Okay, let's see. One story. The very first patient to use the Creative Arts Therapy Studio was an 11-year-old boy who had been a patient at Advocate Children since he was first diagnosed at 2. His whole life, right? That's a long time. He had been an active participant in both art therapy and music therapy throughout the years. Most often his sessions would take place bedside. After a recent surgery a year ago, the art therapist partnered with his physical therapist, whose goal was to increase the patient's ambulation or movement. Because he just had surgery, he was bedside. So to get him to go to the studio, they were like, you can be the first one to go. You need to walk there, you need to get there, you need to get there. And so this patient was so excited to be the very first patient to make art in the studio that he used this as his motivation to walk to the studio, no breaks, no wheelchair, nothing. While in the studio, the art therapist and his mom made art for his mom and one of his doctors. So that's a great story. Another story is a young patient newly diagnosed with a chronic condition visited the studio for a special opportunity to decorate a pair of cleats for a certain Cubs player. Her parents commented to the art therapist that once she settled into the studio, got out of her room, and began making art, she completely relaxed. They noticed that her whole demeanor and energy shifted from anxious and self-conscious to relaxed and comfortable. When the Cubs player finally arrived to the studio to meet her, she easily engaged with him, smiling and laughing. Just a few more. A teen girl who had participated in music therapy for years has become more interactive during recent admission because of participating in the Creative Arts Therapy Studio. This included discussing adjustments to her new family living situation and making music to represent the changes. She seemed to be more free to express herself once she left her hospital room. Perfect. A school-aged girl who was struggling to cope with multiple hospital admissions within a short period of time began to verbally shut down. Due to previous medical trauma, she presented as highly anxious around medical staff, often resisting routine medical care. She was invited to the Creative Arts Therapy Studio for an art therapy session to increase coping, promote self-control, and provide a sense of normalcy through engagement in art making. While she was in the art studio, patient became engaged, animated, relaxed, and openly sharing, finally verbally, about her fears and concerns about the hospital. Her art therapist addressed her misconceptions and validated her worries. When she returned to her room after the session, her mom commented on how patient appeared happier and more relaxed. Art heals. Wow. That is our saying, art heals.
What strikes me is the range of impact from just the place being a physical motivator of, hey, if you work hard and continue to follow the PT work, you can walk to the art studio and be there. And then also what happens in the studio, just bringing out something that, maybe otherwise would have been held back or wasn't even aware. They weren't
Or
even
wasn't
aware
even
of.
addressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's great. I'm so happy. I'm so happy that it's there. I'm so happy it opened. There was several months where I was like, I don't know if this is going to happen. With planning anything, building anything, there's setbacks. But I was determined, and my mom would have loved this. This is exactly who she was. She would have loved this.
You mentioned being in partnership with the art therapists and their program, which previously was going strictly bedside. Have you had any insights from them of what the studio has meant for them or has allowed them to do?
Yeah, from their point of view, because it was bedside for so long, there was a lot of going back and forth with art supplies, carts, storage, back and forth. When they got to the bedside, maybe the patient changed their mind and said, well, I want to do paint instead. Back to the storage room, a lot of back and forth. So though that still happens, like I said, for patients on isolation, the studio now is a landing ground. It's where all the art supplies are. It's where all of the equipment is. It's where they can, there's bean bags in there. There's, those lights, LED lights that kids have in their rooms. And it's a place where, oh, you changed your mind, let me just turn around and grab some paint instead, or let me grab a canvas, and it's all right there. So it has made everything more centrally located for them. And you can make music in there, there's instruments for the music therapy.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, it's also got to be validating for them to have a space.
A space, yeah.
Just
They had a closet
space.
before.
And, to have a space and for Advocate to value art therapy and music therapy enough to say,
Definitely.
like, hey, here's a space for that because we know the impact that it has. And it seems like it's paying off dividends quite well.
Quite well, yeah. It's really good to hear these stories.
So how is the art therapy studio funded?
It is funded directly and just on donations. When I first opened the fund about a month or two before the grand opening, before the dedication of the room, it was all word of mouth. I sent emails to everyone I knew. My old, first my family and friends, but then my old employers, my brothers and sisters' families and friends, things like that. And it was a wide reach, neighbors, people I've worked with since my previous job. And so it was word of mouth, and we raised a lot of money. Everyone was so excited about it. And then since then, throughout the year, we have donations. Some donations came in at Christmas time, year end. We've had monetary donations. We've had art supply donations. The value of social media, a good story about social media is this girl I went to high school with, who I haven't seen, since high school, since graduation. We would talk sometimes on Facebook, and she sent me a Facebook message about a year ago and said, hey, I noticed what you were doing with your mom and, the studio in your mom's name. I have a whole bunch of art supplies and scrapbooking supplies. I'd love to donate. I was like, oh my God, I'll be right there. So word of mouth gets out and they want to help. It's pretty great how there's really good people in this world that want to help. You know what I mean? Yeah. We just had a donation from the Oak Brook Ladies Golf Club. Donated their an end of season charity was the Grace Ann Jobia Creative Arts Therapy Studio, and so they donated a big check in December. We're getting a big donation this coming Saturday from Northwest Chargers Hockey in Arlington Heights. That is a big art supply donation. They have a tournament day where teams are playing all day long. There's hockey games playing all day long, and whether you're the home team or the away team, you bring an art supply to donate.
Beautiful.
It's huge. They did that last year too.
I was going to say, because I would imagine that funding for this isn't just necessarily for a space, but all the equipment, all the supplies, and for a child or a person, a patient of the hospital to be able to come there and have access to all of this without cost to them, I would take it.
None.
Right?
Yeah, the room is funded. I gifted the room. It's now the supplies that are needed. And art therapy always had a line item in the budget for supplies, but now they have their own fund.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I would imagine with a room and with the
Yeah.
the use that room gets, that supplies would be certainly something that are an ongoing need and will be forever. Really.
Yeah, forever, yeah. So we rely heavily on donations, cash donations, or art supply donations throughout the year.
Okay. So if somebody wanted to donate or to find out more, what would be the first step? How would they go about contacting whoever it is that they would need to get in touch with for the Creative Arts Therapy Studio?
Well, first you would go online to donate.aahgiving.org. So donate.aah, Advocate Aurora Health, aahgiving.org. And then follow the prompts to get to the Grace Ann Jobia Creative Arts Therapy Studio.
Great, and we'll have the link for that.
You'll have the link for that.
Scrolling at the bottom
Very
here.
specific, yeah. You can always write, if you don't want to go online and do it, you can write a check to Advocate Charitable Foundation, and then in the notes that we can provide on the screen too, directly where it will go, and then it will directly go to the Grace Ann Jobia Creative Arts Therapy Studio, the fund.
Well, Dina, this has been wonderful. I guess I want to leave with one question because the inspiration behind this was obviously your mom, and you've talked about that. And I know there are many people that have had somebody impact their lives like your mom has impacted yours. As people contemplate, how to carry forth a legacy of somebody else or how to celebrate someone else's life, if there's somebody that's considering, hey, I remember this person, I'm really interested, but I just don't think that I've got it in me to do anything, what would you offer them?
I would say, do it. Just do it. This was on my mind for, I hate to say it, years. I thought about this. It wasn't just like, hey, I have an idea, call the hospital, and a year and a half later it happened. I would be in church, and instead of listening to the homily, which I should listen to the readings, I would be like, what can I do? What can I do? I would be driving in my car. I would be at stoplights. For years, I would just think about, I would love to put a craft room in a kid's hospital. Someday I'm going to do that. And I just thought about it and thought about it. And then it was like, I thought about it for so long. And I'll tell you a nice story. I was talking to a friend of mine, and usually when I talk about my mom, I talk about, oh, my mom passed away and she didn't get to see I talk about that aspect of it. And she said to me, you're going to have to forget the fact that your mom died, and you're going to have to remember that she lived, because she lived for so many years, right? 72 years. She lived. That's what your memories are. And I hung up with her and I thought, I'm doing it. Picked up the phone. I'm like, she lived. Yes, she did pass away, but she lived, and she lived for so long. And she impacted so many people. So I called, and I just kind of cold called. And with, my background in the corporate world, I'm like, just make some phone calls. And so I cold called. I got to the people I needed to get to. I ended up landing on a girl by the name of Amy Valenzio, who was she was with Charitable Foundations, and she was so great. She was like, I'm in. Let's set up a meeting. Let's get this going. And she put me in touch with the art therapist. And this is all over probably 72 hours, because they were like, what? We're in. You want an art studio? Yes, let's do it. So they're all about the kids. They're all about helping the kids in whatever way they can. And my first phone call in March of 2023 was with a therapist, Lori Mackey. She didn't know me. We didn't know each other. She didn't know my mom, but she was genuinely interested in my story. She was interested in what I wanted to do, but she was genuinely interested in my inspiration behind it. And I thought, this is the place. This is it. So just do it. It may take a while, and you'll get your setbacks and you'll get your frustrations, but stick with it. It is so worth it in the end.
Well, thanks for sharing your story and the way that inspiration can come and produce something that provides for people in need. I think that's just heartwarming and wonderful, and what a great testament to what's possible when we set our minds to things.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that. Thank you for sharing what's going on at the Creative Arts Therapy Studio.
Thanks for the interest. I was so happy to hear from you guys, and I'm so happy to explain it to everyone. So thank you for having me.
Well, Dina, it's been a pleasure today. So thank you so much. And thank you as well for tuning in for this month's edition of the Community Bridge. Until next time, God bless.